Imagine living in a society where every word you speak is monitored, every expression on your face is analyzed, and even your thoughts can get you arrested. Where the government rewrites history daily and demands you believe two contradictory things at once. That is not science fiction anymore. That is just 1984, and it was written 75 years ago. George Orwell published 1984 and 1949. Right after the Second World War. He was dying of tuberculosis and he knew it. He poured everything he understood about totalitarianism, propaganda, and the corruption of language into this book. It was not meant to be a prediction, it was meant to be a warning. And every time surveillance technology advances, every time a government manipulates information, every time language gets twisted for political purposes, people go back to 1984 and realize Orwell saw it coming. The novel is set in a superstate called Oceania, one of three massive totalitarian empires that have divided the world. The story follows Winston Smith, a low-level bureaucrat whose job is to rewrite historical records to match whatever the government currently claims is true. He hates the system. He secretly rebels by keeping a diary, which is a thought crime punishable by death. And then he falls in love, which is also a crime. What happens next is one of the bleakest and most disturbing endings in literature. The government in 1984 is simply called the Party, and it is led by a figurehead named Big Brother whose face is everywhere on posters saying Big Brother is watching you. The party does not just want political obedience, it wants total psychological control. It wants to determine not just what you do but what you think and feel. External compliance is not enough. The party demands that you love Big Brother, and it has the tools to make that happen. Every home has a telescreen, which is basically a TV that watches you back. It cannot be turned off. It monitors your face, your voice, your movements 24 hours a day. If you look too unhappy, you can be arrested for face crime if you talk in your sleep and say the wrong thing. Your own children are encouraged to report you. Privacy does not exist. Even the concept of privacy is considered dangerous. And the thing is, this is not that far from where we already are. Orwell understood that surveillance changes behavior, even when you are not being watched at that exact moment. Just knowing you could be watched at any time makes you start policing yourself. You begin to internalize the surveillance. You perform loyalty even when you are alone because you no longer trust your own privacy. That psychological mechanism is what makes totalitarianism so efficient. The state does not need to watch everyone all the time. It just needs everyone to believe they might be watched. If this is hitting, hit subscribe. We break down the books that matter. The ones that predicted where we are headed and the ones that show us how to think clearly when everyone else is losing their minds. Links to the book, related videos, and more resources are in the description. One of the most brilliant parts of the book is Newspeak, the official language the party is creating to replace English. The goal of Newspeak is to make it impossible to think rebellious thoughts by removing the words necessary to express them. If there is no word for freedom, how do you articulate the desire for it? If the word bad is replaced with ungood, and very bad becomes double plus unged, the texture of human emotion flattens into crude slogans. This hits different now that we live in a world where language is constantly being policed and manipulated. Words get redefined, euphemisms hide brutal realities, enhanced interrogation instead of torture, collateral damage instead of dead civilians. Newspeak is not just a fictional language. It is a process we see happening in real time whenever those in power try to control how we talk about things, because controlling language controls thought. Orwell was obsessed with language his entire career. He wrote an essay called Politics and the English Language that argues bad writing is not just aesthetically ugly, it is morally dangerous. Vague language allows vague thinking, and vague thinking allows terrible things to be done without the people doing them fully recognizing what they are doing. Clear language, honest language, is an act of resistance. That is why the party in 1984 is so focused on destroying it. Then there is doublethink, which might be the most important concept in the entire book. Doublethink is the ability to hold two contradictory beliefs in your mind at the same time and accept both of them. The party slogans are pure doublethink. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. These are not just propaganda. They are training exercises in accepting contradictions without resolving them. Why would a regime want people to practice doublethink? Because once you can believe contradictory things, you can no longer use logic to resist. If reality is whatever the party says it is today, and tomorrow they say the opposite and you believe that too, then you have given up the ability to hold them accountable to consistency. Truth becomes malleable. And once truth is malleable, power is absolute. Look at how this plays out in modern politics. A politician says one thing on Monday and the exact opposite on Friday, and their supporters defend both positions without blinking. That is doublethink in action. Not because people are stupid, but because tribal loyalty and emotional identification can override the need for consistency. Orwell saw that this was not a bug in totalitarianism, it was a feature. The goal is to destroy the instinct for intellectual honesty. Winston works in the Ministry of Truth, which is the department responsible for propaganda and rewriting history. When the party changes its position, Winston's job is to go back and alter every old newspaper, book, and document to match the new position. If the party claimed last year that Oceania was at war with East Asia, and this year they claim it has always been at war with Eurasia, Winston makes that true by destroying all evidence to the contrary. The terrifying thing is that it works. People genuinely forget. Without a stable historical record, memory itself becomes unreliable. You start to doubt what you remember because the written record says something else. And once no one can trust their own memory or verify facts independently, the party can claim anything and no one can disprove it. The past is whatever the present needs it to be. We see versions of this constantly. Politicians deny saying things that are on video. Governments claim events did not happen when there is photographic evidence. Entire online communities develop alternate histories where provable facts are dismissed as fake. Orwell knew that if you can control the record of the past, you can control how people understand the present. And if you control the present, you control the future. Near the end of the book, Winston is captured and tortured. His torturer, O'Brien, explains the true purpose of the party. It is not about building a better society or achieving some utopian ideal. The purpose is power itself. O'Brien says, "The object of power is power. We are not interested in the good of others. We are interested solely in power." This is totalitarianism stripped of all pretense. Most dystopian fiction presents the villain as someone who believes they are doing good. They are trying to create order, or security, or equality, and they justify the cruelty as necessary means to a noble end. Orwell rejects that entirely. The party does not have noble ends. It has only the will to dominate. Power for its own sake. Forever. O'Brien describes a future as a boot stamping on a human face. Forever. That image has haunted readers for 75 years. This is what makes 1984 so dark. In most stories, the hero resists and wins, or resists and dies a martyr, or at least resists and preserves their integrity. Winston does none of those things. The party breaks him completely. By the end, he genuinely loves Big Brother. Not as an act, not as survival, but as a real psychological transformation. The party wins. Totally. And Orwell offers no hope that it could have gone any other way. One of the most famous scenes is when O'Brien tortures Winston into believing that 2 + 2 = 5. Not just saying it to stop the pain, but genuinely believing it. O'Brien argues that if the party says 2 + 2 = 5, then it does, because reality exists only in the human mind. And the party controls the mind. Winston resists this at first. He clings to the idea that objective truth exists independently of belief. But under enough pain and psychological pressure, Winston breaks. He sees 5 fingers when there are 4. He believes the party when they tell him things he knows to be false. This is Orwell's nightmare scenario. The destruction not just of political freedom but of the very possibility of truth. If power can rewrite mathematics, if torture can alter perception of basic facts, then nothing is safe. No belief, no memory, no logical principle is beyond the reach of control. We are not there yet, obviously. But the instinct to deny obvious reality when it conflicts with tribal loyalty, that is everywhere. People defending provably false claims because admitting the truth would mean siding with the other team. That erosion of shared reality, where basic facts become matters of opinion, that is the road toward 2 + 2 = 5. And once you are on that road, it is very hard to turn back. So what do you actually do with 1984? First, pay attention to language. When someone in power uses vague euphemisms or redefines words to mean their opposite, notice it, call it out, insist on clear language. Orwell's entire career was built on the principle that clear thinking requires clear writing, and clear writing exposes lies. If you cannot say what you mean plainly, you probably do not mean anything honest. Second, resist doublethink in your own mind. When you notice yourself believing to contradictory things because it is emotionally convenient, stop and ask which one is actually true. This is harder than it sounds because doublethink feels good. It lets you avoid cognitive dissonance. But that comfort is the same comfort Winston feels at the end, when he finally stops resisting and loves Big Brother. Intellectual honesty is uncomfortable. That discomfort is the price of remaining free. Third, defend the historical record. When someone tries to rewrite what happened last year or last week, push back. Keep receipts. Preserve evidence. Share primary sources. The ability to verify facts independently is what stands between a free society and the Ministry of Truth. Every time you let a lie about the past go unchallenged because it is too exhausting to argue, you are giving the party a little more power. The thing about 1984 that people sometimes miss is that Orwell was not predicting the future. He was describing patterns he saw in his own time. Stalinist Russia, Nazi Germany, and even elements of British wartime propaganda. He took those patterns and extended them to their logical conclusion. The reason the book stays relevant is not because Orwell was psychic. It is because those patterns keep showing up. Every time a government expands surveillance in the name of security, someone brings up 1984. Every time a politician gaslights the public about easily verified facts, someone brings up 1984. Every time language gets weaponized to obscure brutal realities, someone brings up 1984. The book has become shorthand for a specific kind of threat to freedom. The threat that comes not from violent revolt but from the slow erosion of truth and privacy. Orwell died less than a year after publishing the book. He was only 46. He never got to see how massively influential it would become. He never saw the Soviet Union collapse or the rise of digital surveillance or the internet. But he understood the mechanisms of totalitarianism so clearly that his insights translated across every new technology and every new regime. That is what makes a book timeless. Not that it gets every detail right, but that it gets the underlying dynamics right. If you have not read it, it is not a fun book. It is bleak, it is disturbing, and it does not have a happy ending. But it is also essential, not because it tells you what to do, but because it shows you what to watch out for. It is a map of the mechanisms of control, written by someone who understood them deeply. And in a world where those mechanisms are becoming more sophisticated every year, that map is more useful than ever. Here is the bottom line. 1984 is not about the future. It is about the present. Every year it gets a little more relevant because the things Orwell warned about keep happening in new forms. Surveillance technology advances, language gets manipulated, history gets rewritten, and people keep reaching for this 75-year-old book because it still explains what is happening better than most contemporary analysis. If you want to understand how freedom dies, not with a bang but with a slow, comfortable slide into doublethink and surveillance, this is the book. Tomorrow I distill Orwell into one 60-second warning. This video was created by combining human research and script writing with our AI-assisted visuals and production. Links to the book-related reading and more resources are in the description below.